stuff. Did a lot of, I built a lot of command line instruments,
Okay.
CLI tools,
Cool.
run all types of CLI tools, all that.
Cool. So can you talk a little bit about why you would, I mean, why not just use a GUI? Why use the command line? I mean, things are clearer and easier, right? If I have a GUI and I have a folder on my computer and I get a nice little icon and I can double click on it, I see where everything is. It's very clear and intuitive. So why would you use the command line?
Well, I don't know, it feels a lot faster than using a GUI. That's one thing.
Does it feel that way at first?
Oh, no. Yeah, first, in the beginning it was painful. But once you live in the terminal, like after a few years, it's the only way you want to go. So
Yeah.
you only want to work in a terminal, never touch a GUI instrument ever again.
Yeah, I think that's the experience of people who have, lots of experience. So GUIs are great. They're intuitive. I mean, they're designed to be intuitive and user friendly. The command line interface, is in its own way user friendly, but it's not how people typically first come to computers or start using them. So it seems a bit esoteric, and there's lots of there are lots of strange commands, and it's one of those things where it feels like you need to memorize a whole bunch of stuff before you can do anything. So I'm going to try and demystify the command line just a little bit, and you will be using it, but you'll mostly be using it for a pretty narrow range of common tasks, like moving around in your file system, creating and deleting files and folders, and viewing the contents of folders. So that's pretty much it. And so I'm going to go through a thing and kind of introduce you to this. Don't feel like you need to be, in real time memorizing anything. You're going to use this stuff so often that it's going to become second nature, whether you try to explicitly learn it or not. So I'm going to begin by sharing my screen.
Don't forget pushing the GitHub.
Yeah. If everyone could mute themselves, it's a big class, so it's hard to tell who's not muted. All right, so can everyone see my screen? All right, cool. So here I am. Your specific command line may look a little different. I have a couple things in my bash profiles. We've just set up our bash profiles, or we've started that process. You can customize yours. You can do whatever you want with it. So don't worry if this doesn't look exactly like yours, but it should look similar, at least by the time you're done with install fest. So here I am on my computer. So how do I know where I am in my system right now?
It tells you right there. It tells your path right there on the command line.
Right. So it tells me my path right here, and this is convenient. This is the way that I and we have set up the bash profile. But if you didn't have this, I mean, how many people haven't finished setting up their bash profile? Yeah, so you're probably not going to see anything as helpful as this. So how would you know where you are on your computer?
You can ls
working directory.
Yeah. So there's a couple things you could do. I think the most direct way to find out is to enter a command called pwd, or present working directory. And this will give you the path starting from the root of your system to where you are right now. So /users, code misspelled, code platoon, and so on, right? So if you want to know where you are in your file system, you can always do the present working directory, pwd. Now, these commands in general, these bash commands, you can think of them as functions. So these are, pwd is like a function. It's like calling a function without any parameters. It's just pwd, you're going to execute this function. There are some functions, some bash commands, some commands. You can just enter the command and that's it. For example, if I want to see all of, we've just been setting up the profiles, we've been adding some environment variables like the path variable. So I can actually see what my path variable is. So one thing I could do is I could do echo. So echo is like console log in JavaScript or print in Python. It just will print or write whatever you say to the terminal. So, right, so print echo hi there, it just executes this command, and this is the parameter that I pass it. I could also add quotes, but echo is smart enough to figure this out. So this is I'm executing a function, and this is the parameter that I'm passing it. Most command line functions will work this way, or terminal commands. Okay, so you can echo. I can also echo my path variable, which is what I was going to do. So echo. So that variable is called path in all caps. And if I want to examine the contents of it, I can echo, so print, I can print it, and I will tell bash that this is an environment variable using the $ prefix. So you can see that there's a whole bunch of stuff here. So a whole bunch of, can anyone tell me what the path is, by the way? Like the all caps path?
It's it holds all the directories that your command line will look to execute that whatever programs. It's like say you type echo, first needs to look at where in the path to find the echo command. Well, except echo is different because it's actually part of the system, so it won't have to go through the path to look for echo. But say another command like node, which we'll be using, it needs to look through the path to find where node is located, what directory it's in, and if the node directory isn't in that path, it can't find it.
Exactly. So again, this is all just kind of general introductions. Don't worry about memorizing any of this. But yeah, so this is a command, and the path is going to be the default places where your system is going to look for that command. So if I just enter this command echo, I'm sure some of you have already seen this, where it'll say bash, whatever. So if I try to do some random thing, it'll say bash command not found, because it doesn't know what the hell a DSF is. That's not anything that I have. It's specifically nothing that I have on my path. So what my terminal actually did was it said, okay, here's a command, a DSF. It's going to look first in here. So it's going to go to this particular place in my computer, this address in my computer. It's a series of directories or folders, and it's going to check, is there anything in here called ADSF? Nope. So it's going to move on to the next one. It's going to do the same thing here. It's going to look through everything in this directory and see if there's anything called ADSF, and so on. And it's going to get all the way to the end of this, the very last one, and it's still not found anything. So that's when it's going to throw an error, right? But it's going to check everything that you have on your path and see if it can get a hit. So that's what the path is. All right. So if I want to, I guess I shouldn't have just done that. Dang it. So how do I see the contents of the current directory that I'm in?
You already did it. You ls command will show everything in your directory.
Okay. Couldn't sneak that by you. Okay, so ls will show me everything. So it's list, you can think of it as a list. It's going to list the contents of whatever directory I'm in right now, which in this case is everything / command line. So ls. And there are two things here. There's a text file called basic commands, and then there's a folder called game. Is there anything else in this directory?
There might be hidden files if you use ls-la to get the hidden files.
Okay, so even though I did ls and I said show me all of the files right here, there are, in some sense, there are two kinds of files. There are hidden files and visible files. We've actually seen and manipulated an invisible file, and invisible files usually start with a dot. So your .bash profile, which you changed. So we can add a flag. So if we think of ls as a function, we can add some flags. These are actually two flags. L means show it to me as a list, and A means show me all of the hidden files. So we pass these two parameters, and these two parameters will modify the execution of the ls command. So we take the default ls command and we say, I want to tweak this a little bit. And so we pass it parameters, these two parameters. There's the dash. So single dash usually gets you an abbreviated parameter, or you can do a double dash. So for example, I think this will, no, that doesn't work. I can do Python dash dash version. This, yeah. So this is a bad example, but there's verbose commands, meaning a full word, and usually there are 2 dashes, and then there are shorter commands with 1 dash, usually abbreviated to a single character. So I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to go back to ls. So I've already typed ls-la before. I could type it again. It's not that much work. Is there some way for me to recall commands that I've previously executed?
One way, I think, press up, or look at the history, or you can alias it.
Yeah, yeah. So there are a few things. So as you may not realize it, but your terminal is spying on you. So everything you do is being secretly recorded. So I can do history, and I can see all of the commands, and I think it goes up to 1,000 by default. You can change that configuration if you like. So every command you execute is going to be saved to this history file, and then you can actually press the up arrow and cycle through previous commands. So you don't have to type them again, or you don't have to remember what they were, especially if they're more complicated commands. So I'm going to do, where's ls-la? Did I not do that? Did I skip that? Well, whatever. So ls-la. So here the output looks a little different. We can see the 2 things here. One, this is a different format. So instead of just giving me the file names, it gives me, this more explicit format. So we're not going to worry about all this stuff, but this is a directory. That's why there's this D here. It's a directory. Directory is the same thing as file, or sorry, it's the same thing as a folder. And then this basic commands is a file. And then we have these 2 things, a dot and then 2 dots. And so someone who hasn't answered a question yet. Does anyone happen to know what the dot and double dot is?
Yeah, so 1 dot is going to be your current directory, and then 2 dots should be the one like back one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm here wherever I am, so / command line. This double dot is a reference to one directory up. So this directory is parent. So that's a convenient thing to have a reference to. And the single dot is the where you are right now. It's your current directory. So if I want to open up this particular folder in VS Code, I could do code, because now if you set this up, code is now in your path. I can code dot, which means open up code and open it up where I am right now. So I can type that in. It should open up. Let me enlarge this. Okay. So I'm going to close this right now, but you can do that. All right. So I'm going to start by LSing, and I want to read the contents of this basic commands.txt. There are lots of ways that you can do that. I could open this up in VS Code. I'm going to press the up arrow a couple times to cycle back. I'm going to open code in my current directory. And then I can just, in this GUI, this very nice IDE, I can look at the contents of this file. So we have navigate. So to navigate or move around, you CD, it's change directories, and then you pass it an argument, which is going to be the path to wherever you want to go. List the contents, ls, and then this can also take an argument, but And then make a directory. The command for that is mkdir, make directory. And then create a file, touch. That one doesn't follow any rule that I know of. I don't know why it's touch, but it's touch. And then you can create a file that way. And then deleting a directory is rm for remove. And then if it's a file, you can just give it the file name. If it's a directory, you have to pass it this flag. So it recursively will remove everything inside of it. So this is just an overview. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a very cringy game. So feel free if you need to groan or cringe or do whatever, have at it. What we're going to do here is, so I know I'm at this command line directory. I have ls. I can see that I have basic commands and game. And I want to go into the game folder. So how do I do that?
CD into it?
Yeah. So CD, and then I can just type game. And again, I'm very, very lazy. So these last two letters are a bit much for me. So I can do GA in this case, and then tab, and it should autocomplete. So it knows where I am and what files and folders I have in my current context. So as long as there are no ambiguous cases, it will automatically fill in the rest. So I'm going to CD into game. And notice that my display has changed. And if I do PWD, I can see that this is where I am right now. So I'm inside the game folder. And if I want to see the contents of this folder,
LS?
yes, so ls. Okay, so I see that there are three things here. That's a little hard to see with the formatting, which is one reason you might want to do -L, for example. You can see clearly there are three different things. There's this letter to princess.js file. There's a signpost.txt, and then there's a folder called Unixia. So I want to read the contents. So we're going to play this this well-designed game, and we want to read the contents of signpost.txt so we can get started. There's several ways I could do this.
You could use cat, vi, less, more.
Yeah, so there are a whole bunch of command line utilities that I could use. So I can cat, which will print out. It's basically just going to print out the contents of the file. But again, you don't need to memorize any of these, but signpost. So I did si and then tab and autofilled. So cat, again, cat is the command. Signpost.txt is the argument that I'm passing it, which in this case is a file path. And it says, go to Unixia to find the princess. I could also do less. So less or more, similar things. These are basically ways to look at a file on the command line. So instead of using something like VSCode, we do less signpost. And it's the same thing. This is not so useful. This is more useful if you have a larger file where you need to scroll. So I'm going to quit and press Q. You can exit out of that. I could also just open this in VS Code, right? So how would I open this in VS Code?
Use the code function and then the argument signpost.txt.
Yeah, so code signpost.txt. And there we go. So now I can read this in my handy dandy GUI. So I'm going to close this. So I know that I have to go to Unixia to find the princess. So I'm going to do ls to reorient myself again. And I can see that there's a folder called Unixia. So I'm going to go in there. Someone who hasn't spoken yet, how do I go into this folder?
CD Unixia.
Okay. All right, so I do ls, I can see what's going on. So I'm going to talk to the wise old man. So how do I How do I see what the wise old man has to say?
You can do a cat
Okay.
space WY tab.
All right. So I can see there's some text here. You must send a letter to the princess called letter to princess.js, which exists in this earlier directory. She's very picky about the content, so you'll need to impress her. You'll have to defeat a dragon to find out what she likes. Okay, so let's go check out this letter to princess. So I'm in Unixia, and this letter to princess.js file is in this folder. So how do I get to the game folder?
CD dot dot.
Yeah.
CD space dot dot.
Yep. So this will get me to the parent directory. So I'm going to change directories into the parent, and we can see that I'm now in game. I can do ls to confirm, and now I have this. So I could try running this file. So what kind of file is this?
JS file, so you could use it, run it using Node.
Yes. So it's a .js extension, so we can reasonably expect that it's going to be a JavaScript file, which means we can run it with Node. So I'm going to run Node. Again, this is a command. It's part of our path now, so my system knows where to find it. So Node and then letter to princess. I can run this, and that didn't work. So I should probably start freaking out, and maybe I shouldn't be here. I'll never be a good software engineer. We just got an error. How could that possibly be? So can anyone, there's a lot going on here. It's a whole bunch of text.
Or we could go ahead and read the error since that's step one.
You could, that's usually, I mean, freaking out can be helpful, but sometimes it's good to actually read the
That's
error.
what I turn to normally, but
Yeah.
In this case, we might go ahead and create a file called sign of love, since it says that there is no file called that, and maybe
Okay.
that's the letter that they want us to write.
Yeah, so how did you know what the error was?
Oh, I'm sorry. It says at the top there that threw an error, and the error text was error NOENT, whatever that means.
Mhm.
No such file or directory. Open sign of love.txt. So at some point, there's some code in there trying to open that file up. That didn't happen. So it's looking for the rest of it. And of course, it gives us the rest of the stack there, but that's not so important.
Yeah, yeah. So the stack can definitely be important, but for right now, yeah, we're not going to worry about that. But yeah, so good. So you got an error, you read the error, you don't understand, or maybe even don't care about the entire message. You zero in on what's important, which in this case, we know that it's trying to open something and it can't. So it's trying to perform this action, and it's trying to perform, again, we have path. So we have path all caps. That's our special environment variable that our system is going to look through for any command that we tell it to execute. And then we have, let's say lowercase path, which is basically the same thing, but it's just the location of something on your system. So we told it, apparently our code is telling it to look through this. So let's go ahead and take a look at the code just so we can see what's happening. So I'm going to open letter to princess in VSCode. I could open it just using cat or less or vim or anything else, but I'm not going to have all of the handy dandy highlighting and stuff. So I want to open this in VSCode.
So code letter to princess.js.
Yep. So let's do that.
Does that command work regardless of what directory you're in? If you just name it the name of the file?
Yeah, so typically, so I'm only opening individual files. Typically, you're going to want to do is create a project, which will be a folder. Then you'll open it, and then you'll start working. At the very beginning, for the first couple of weeks, most of what you do will be single files, but that will change quickly. So again, you don't need to understand any of this code, but you don't need to understand any kind of detail or specifics. But can anyone tell me kind of first impressions or overall what's happening?
It looks like that the deliver letter function is being called and it's looking for that file, and the file is not there.
Okay, so I have two functions written here: deliver letter and accept courtship. And then at the bottom of the file, I'm calling both of the functions. I'm calling this deliver letter, which is gonna return something. And I'm assigning that to a variable. And then I'm gonna call accept courtship with the result of that first function. In this case, it's going to be a string, and it's going to do some kind of check and print something out. So when we first tried to run this, we got an error because there was no file. So how can we eliminate this error?
You can touch the file, or you can
Yeah.
echo into a file, into a new file.
Yeah, so as is the case with all coding, there are usually 20 ways to do any given thing. I'm gonna use touch, the touch command, to create a file. So it's expecting something called sign of love in the current directory. And I can tell it's the current directory because it's not prefixed with anything else. There's no directory path. So I can do touch. That's how you create a file. And sign of love.txt. And I can do ls. So I guess, did this work?
Well, it's an empty file, but there's a file there. So
How do you know there's a file? I typed this in and then it just went to
Oh.
the next line.
you just need the
Yeah,
ls. to
nothing
check it.
happened, so that's good.
Yes, exactly. Nothing
Yeah.
happened. So you don't get positive reinforcement. Unfortunately, you don't get positive reinforcement from the command line. It only tells you if you do something wrong. So if it doesn't say anything, it doesn't yell at you, then what you did worked. It may not be exactly what you wanted to do, but it didn't throw an error. So now I can do ls, and I can see that we have this new file created right here. It's an empty file, but it exists. So I'm going to try running this command. So how do I cycle through my history to run an earlier command?
The up arrow.
Up arrow. So I'm going to hit this a couple times. Node letter to princess. And this time I run it and I don't get an error. And if we look at the code, we can see that it's reading the contents of the file. Again, you don't need to worry about the specifics. It's reading the contents of the file, but the file is blank, so it's nothing. And then it's expecting a particular thing, and it's printing not impressed. So we need to figure out how to impress the princess. So I'm going to go back here, and we have ls. And I'm going to go back into Unixia. So how do I move?
CDU tab.
CD. Okay, so I'm going to ls again just to see where I am. Okay, and the wise old man, I forgot what he said. Let me do less wise old man. He says you have to send a letter. You'll have to defeat a dragon to find out what she likes. Okay, so I'm going to go back here, and we're going to have to go into this dungeon. So I'm going to cd into the dungeon and ls. And we see we have this dragon.py file. So what can I reasonably guess about this? Am I cutting out here?
Python file. Run
Yes,
it with-
it's a
Sorry, I think I
Python file.
cut out for a sec. Can everyone see me? Am I moving? All right,
Yeah, we can see you.
sorry. It looked like it froze for a second. So yeah, so what kind of file is this?
Python file.
Python file.
Okay, so how do I run a Python file?
Python 3, and then dragon.py.
Yeah, so you could do Python 3. I've aliased that, so I can just do Python since I'll never use Python 2 for anything. God willing. And then dragon.py. So I run this, and there we go. So now I have this ASCII art dragon, which is breathing fire. So I'm gonna go, how do we defeat this dragon? I don't know. So I'm gonna open up a new tab. And I'm gonna go back, I wanna go back where I was before. So you can CD one level at a time. You could do CD and then go to the next one, CD, go to the next one, CD, go to the next one, or we could give it a whole long path. We know exactly what our destination looks like. So I'm going to do CD, on my desktop. Let me make this bigger. Stay open. Okay, so my CD, desktop, code platoon, Papa's, what was it? Command line, and then press enter. I can do ls. I can see, okay, I'm gonna go into the game, CD, game, ls again. All right, I'm gonna go into CD into Unixia, and then I now remember, because my short-term memory is kicking in, that I had another folder called dungeon. So I can just add that right there. ls, and what I want to do is I want to look at the contents of the file, and I prefer to have the the nice display features of in IDE. So I'm going to open it in VSCode. So code dragon.py. All right. So can anyone tell me what's happening here? Just brief overview. You don't have to be precise. What's happening in this file?
So it looks like there's an attack command that's being run. Attack command has a try except block. The try block, it tries a while true, which runs the that breathe fire function. The exception is keyboard interrupt, so you can control was it control E or control C to get out of it. So it doesn't run forever. Then the breathe fire function looks like it runs a for loop on a range inclusive between 1 and 20 and stepping by 2. Sleeping 0.3, I think that's less than a second, so it's 0.3 of a second.
Yep.
Dragon equals some F string. What's this F string doing? Let's see. It's just multiplying, those little stars times I and times something. I missed it because I can't see anymore. But yeah, it's just doing that.
Okay,
And after that is printing dragon.
yeah. So attack is being called. Attack. Does anyone? I know we haven't. You guys haven't really gone over anything try except block, but does anyone know what a try except block is?
Yeah, so it's going to try the piece of code. That code doesn't work. So yeah, it's going to try the piece of code. If that code doesn't work, it's going to go to the except block. So like here, you got this this keyboard interrupt, and if you get the keyboard interrupt, it's going to basically short circuit the try block.
Yeah. So this is a way. Sometimes you're going to get errors, and sometimes those errors are bad, and sometimes you're kind of expecting to get certain kinds of errors. So you can handle them. So in this case, this code it's aware of the possibility that there could be a certain kind of error, and it wants to respond to that particular error. So try is going to say, if everything goes normal and there are no errors, execute this. This is just going to call this function in a loop. So nothing that exciting there. But if there's this particular kind of exception, if this particular exception, and there Python has a whole bunch of exceptions built in, but if something called a keyboard interrupt exception gets thrown, then we're gonna execute these 2 lines. So this keyboard interrupt is basically Control C. So if we go here, now I'm totally lost. So if we go here and we do Control C, that's going to throw an exception, and my code is handling that exception. So it's going to print out this, and then the dragon is going to drop this ASCII rows. So we're going to copy this, pick this up, and then let's see, I'm going to CD out of the dungeon. So CD dot, but I want to go 2 levels up. So how do I go 2 levels up in one jump?
/ and another dot dot.
Yes. So this means go 2 levels up. So go to the grandparent of dungeon. So I'm going to skip Unixia and go all the way to game. I'm going to ls here. And this sign of love.txt. So I'm going to go ahead and open this in VSCode. So code sign of love.
Can you alter it whenever you use the less command?
Not with less. Less will just read it. You can use Vim. I mean, there's a couple ways you could add. I could add this. You can redirect. Output, but there's actually, if you want to see it, it's the world's least intuitive text editor, VI or Vim. So I could type some Python code in here. So there are 2 modes. I'm just telling you this for the sake of curiosity. Hopefully you never have to use Vim. So there are 2 modes. So I'm going to press I for insert mode. That means I can actually edit things, and I'll print. And then to save it, can anyone guess? If you know, don't say it. It's very intuitive. How do you save? You do escape:WQ, right? That's probably the first thing you thought of. Oh, I didn't save it as a file name. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna get out of this and I'm gonna open this. I'm gonna create a new file. So vi test pi. This will be a Python file. And then I'm gonna go in insert mode and then escape:WQ. And I can do ls and see that I have test.py and I can run it. And it will execute that command. What if I want to, okay, I want to delete this. I want to delete test.py now. How do I remove a file?
RM.
Yeah, so rm test.py. So again, I'm going to call the rn function, basically. I'm going to pass it the parameter. And I do ls and test is gone. Okay, so back here, I've saved this. So now if I want to double check the contents of sign of love, I can do cat sign love. And what did I do something wrong there? Code.
You didn't put anything in sign of love yet.
I pasted the wrong thing. Copy that, paste that. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to the up arrow to cycle through my older commands, and you can see the rows there. So now I want to run, deliver the letter to the princess. So I'm going to execute. This is a JavaScript. So node. letter to princess. Execute that. And now she's pleased. So we're gonna get married. But first I have to destroy the dungeon. So I'm gonna have to go back and destroy the dungeon. So how do I do that?
Could you CD into Unixia and then just remove the dungeon?
Yep. So what if I just like RM dungeon? So let's see what happens.
Yeah, you have to use the RMDIR.
Yeah, so I tried to execute just RM dungeon. So this worked before right here because test.py was a file. Here, this is a folder. So RM won't quite work on its own, and I get an error. It says dungeon is a directory, which may not be the most helpful error message if you don't already know that there's a difference. So we need to add, this is something that we would look up, right? So you do a Google search, probably paste this error in there, and eventually, hopefully you would come across something that told you that it needs these flags. So this makes it recursive. It will delete the folder and everything in it. So I do ls, and now the dungeon is gone. And I can cd ... back up to where we are, and everything is good. So are there any questions about basic things you can do in the command line? Let's just quickly look at this again. CD. So the basic commands here are to navigate, to move around, you change directory, CD. You can go up and down with double dots. You can go up to a parent. You can give it a specific file path. It doesn't just have to be one file at a time. You can, if you know exactly where you're going, you can give it a whole long path. To list the contents of either where you are, if you just run it without any parameters, or you can also pass it a file path. Making a directory is mkdir, which I guess we didn't do, so sorry about that. And then create a file, touch, and then the name of the file, and then delete a directory, rm -rf, or to delete a file, just plain rm will work. So you'll end up using these commands pretty regularly, so it should become second nature soon. Any questions? Okay, why don't we take, let's take 5 minutes, and then I'll talk briefly about VS Code.